Yuta Okotsu was the hidden superpower of Jujutsu High that was training abroad during the first 2 seasons of JJK. We saw what happened during Shibuya. It was almost an overwhelming loss. A lot of people died, and Gojo in the end, it wasn't even saved by our heroes. Well, in today's video, we'll test another scenario. What's up guys, Gamblrr here, and in today's video, we're putting Yuta up against Shibuya. The real ones know I made this video a year ago. I'm remaking it now because I have way different opinions on what'll happen this time around. But before we get into it, make sure to like and subscribe. But most importantly, enjoy the video. At the beginning of the month, I made an in-depth analysis on Yuta's strength and progression throughout the story, so check that out if you want to. But honestly, it would feel weird for me to get into a scenario without gauging how strong Yuta truly is. I won't go too crazy with the analysis. Again, you can go check out the Yuta video if you want that. The first thing that needs to be talked about if we're analyzing Yuta is of course his ridiculous curse energy pool. This is one of Yuta's most recognizable features as a sorcerer, the first being Rika, but we'll get into that in a second. When Yuta comes back into the story after Africa, he's immediately sent on a mission to kill Yuji and accepts it, confident that he can fulfill the binding vows, saying he needs to actually end Yuji. When he arrives, everyone is shook, including Naoya, a supreme grade 1 sorcerer who just perception blitzed the crap out of Yuji and Choso. And speaking of Choso, after seeing Yuta, he tells Yuji that he's exactly like Gojo, fight him and you'll immediately die. When the fight starts, Yuta showcases insane speed, almost catching Yuji from his first burst of speed, all while holding a drawn katana. He then demonstrates how insane his curse energy reinforcement is, as he throws a card back at Yuji, who thought he wouldn't have been able to, judging from his physical strength. After dodging the card, only then did he realize that Yuta is the inverse of him. While Yuji has insane physicals and only has so much curse energy to reinforce him, Yuta has lackluster physicals but has an insane curse energy pool to reinforce him. Yuta then goes on to dominate Yuji while trying to not brutally kill him, and suddenly a half-manifested Rika appears and grips Yuji beyond his ability to move. Yuta then kills Yuji but uses positive energy simultaneously to revive him instantly. Yuta goes on to defeat Choso and use reverse curse technique on Naoya, showcasing positive curse energy output and also the ability to heal poison. After fulfilling his mission, Yuta's put into conversations of being able to fight a 15-figure Sukuna and win by Yuji, and while I have an incredibly obvious opinion about that, I won't really go into depth because, well, we have the opportunity to go over it in this video. Anyways, Yuta enters the Sendai colony where he fights 2 characters on the same tier as him. There he steals 2 curse techniques, a pretty fodder Shikigami technique, and a very broken ability to fold the sky's surface. Yuta, after seeing it used against him once, is a complete master at it. With it comes Thin Icebreaker, an ability that negates durability to a certain extent, and has a secondary ability that I won't talk about just yet. Just wait for next week's Yuta video. Anyways, during the Sendai colony, we see some of Yuta's glaring weaknesses, and it included not only his lackluster durability, but also Rika's incompetence. Ryu one-shotted that poor cursed spirit with nothing but a mental amp and a dream. Luckily, Yuta wasn't done evolving, and so he entered an insane training arc where he gained new abilities, upped his physicals, namely his durability, and overall just became a stronger sorcerer. I'll go more in depth on these new changes as we play out our many scenarios because the list is insane, and also I don't want to undermine the value of my 40-minute Yuta video that I made on my phone. Yes, pity me and watch the video. Anyways, this is how this is gonna go. First off, we're putting Shinjuku Yuta into the ring. Last time I did this, I only put our character in a few scenarios, and admittedly, it was because I was too lazy to go over every little fight, but this time I won't sell you guys that short. I will be putting Yuta into a ton of scenarios where we really test out how strong this guy really is, and by the end, after keeping track of his win to loss ratio, we'll see if Yuta really is useful or not. Anyways, no more yapping, let's find out. The first actual scenario we're going to put Yuta in is into the fight Gojo had with the disaster cursed spirits before he got sealed by Kenjaku. I'm going to assume Kenjaku doesn't know Yuta is pulling up, and so when he does, there is no plan regarding taking down the other special grade sorcerer. When Gojo jumps down into the train station, Yuta does as well, so it's Jogo, Hanami, and Choso versus Yuta and Gojo. This is actually a pretty funny thing to think about because of many factors. Everyone can remember that one statement Kenjaku gave saying that anyone who tries to fight alongside Gojo will just get in his way, and this was something that actually demoralized Yuta from jumping in to help Gojo against Sukuna. Gojo is just too strong, and there isn't anyone else in the entire verse who can fight alongside him and not get caught in the collateral damage his power creates. This was the quality Kenjaku was attempting to use against Gojo. If they lured him into a place with a bunch of humans, Gojo's ability to go full power is completely off the table, and the cursed spirits have the ability to stall Gojo for however long they need. At least that's how it was envisioned. The same plan is executed here, but they weren't expecting someone like Yuta appearing, so it makes things a little more complicated. Gojo still can't go full power, and that's because Yuta isn't on that level and because of all the other humans there, but that's okay because Yuta being there allows for a change of objective for Gojo. During the original fight, Choso was barely even a factor. The guy was hanging back, hiding in the crowd of humans because he actually fit in. It was actually only Jogo and Hanami who were actively engaging Gojo, and so that's why they received his attention. If Yuta and Gojo drop down together, Yuta is being sent on Choso duty by Gojo because he's not the type to just let his fight be taken from him. After all, one of the first things bro said was that he needed to kill Hanami because she kept escaping from him. But Choso is another scenario in this video, so I'm not gonna do that just yet. Let's just completely rework it. We're going to imagine that Gojo and Yuta are literally teaming up against the curses in front of them. And Gojo takes Jogo and Yuta takes Hanami, since video purposes again. The first thing Yuta does against Hanami is slash at her, and he knows her durability isn't bad in the slightest. Though Hanami's durability isn't anything compared to the Sukuna Yuta went against in his domain. Hanami was being damaged by a goodwill Yuji who went through multiple power-ups before getting outclassed physically by Yuta. And this Yuta then goes through an entire month-long training arc, improving his strength along the way as well. To be honest, it'd be very sad the way base Yuta would slice and dice Hanami. Even if she tries to retaliate with her own wood techniques, they'd all easily be dodged, sliced, and used to set up an even stronger counterattack. This isn't even including the fact that Yuta has a half-manifested Rika who can keep up with Yuta and set up more attacks for him. She has basically infinite healing on the off chance that Hanami does virtually anything to her. Basically what I'm trying to say is that Yuta slaughters Hanami. If Jogo isn't given the time to stall like he did in the original story, Mahito doesn't pull up to save his butt, and so by the time Yuta's done with Hanami, Gojo kills Jogo. And all that's left is Choso, who can't really do anything, but let's just say Mahito pulls up right before they turn their attention to him. Mahito brings in a whole bunch of chaos, but it doesn't really matter because Gojo isn't trying to find them. It's only 2 enemies and he has 2 allies. While Mahito is trying to tease Gojo, Yuta already killed Choso while he was off guard by sneaking in the crowd. And the best Mahito can do is create a diversion or run away, which I'm not going to lie is definitely something Mahito can do. Either way, Gojo never gets sealed because they just can't deal with the power of 2 sorcerers, so put that W on the board. The next scenario Yuta is pushed into is the fight between Yuji and Choso. When Yuji jumps down those stairs and happens to find Choso, Yuta is right next to him. As Choso sees Yuji, he immediately squares up and shoots a piercing blood at Yuji, but instead of waiting for it to get through his guard, he moves the beam towards Yuta to try and get them both out of the fight as soon as possible. The problem with this is of course the fact that piercing blood is no longer fast after its initial burst, so Yuta easily dodges it. He sends Rika after Choso to keep him occupied and not be able to send more blasts while he uses RCT on Yuji's injury. After dealing with that, both Yuta and Yuji join Rika in jumping Choso, and from here, do I even have to say it? That boy is getting cooked. Choso noted that after receiving 3 unguarded hits from beginning of Shibuya Yuji, he was pretty injured. Now imagine beginning of Shibuya Yuji, a Shikigami stronger and faster than him, and another sorcerer stronger and faster than him, all coming towards Choso with the sole intent of destroying him. There's nothing Choso could do, and funnily enough, Yuta might have actually had experience with blood manipulation since he was at the Goodwill event in his first year and Nobutoshi was there as well. Yuta has an answer to basically everything Choso has. Piercing blood, he's fast enough to dodge or at the very least block. Poison, his RCT is proficient enough to heal it. Supernova, not strong enough to damage him. And anything else he could possibly take out doesn't matter because Yuta puts him in a body bag. I don't think anyone was surprised about this though, so put another W on the board. After Yuji versus Choso was Dagon versus the gang, and so that's where we'll drop Yuta. The initial fight would be hilarious, to be honest. Dagon was getting absolutely embarrassed by Naobito while not fully stacked. He even gets a statement that we'll need for later, but Yuta isn't in any way inferior to this Naobito. Here's how this goes. First off, during Maki's massacre of the clan, Ranta says that Toji could have walked in and did the exact same thing during the time he was alive. This meant that Toji could have arrived and killed every single sorcerer there, including Naobito, Mr. #1 fastest sorcerer. This might not mean he's as fast or faster than him, but it does mean he has the speed to at least deal with his antics. The point is that Toji can hang and Maki has the exact same speed as him. We basically see firsthand this fight going on as Maki fights Naoya, Naobito's son, who's not as fast as Naobito, but during their fight, he fully stacks and becomes so fast he creates a vapor cone. This is obviously way faster than anything Naobito did during Shibuya, and Maki casually kept up with this version of Naoya and even blitzed him for a second. Maki is at the very least relative to Yuta, given that they're both heavy hitters, and if she was a cut above him in any stat, the umbrella term likely wouldn't be used here. This means that Yuta has the ability to not only do what Naobito did to Dagon, but probably even worse, and more importantly, actually damage him. Nanami and Maki were literally unable to do damage, while Naobito was blitzing and destroying that boy with his attacks. Yuta not only has higher AP, but has slicing attacks, and Dagon gets the sashimi treatment before he can even get off his domain. But it'd be boring if this was just the conclusion of that, so we'll send Yuta in as soon as Megami comes in. I don't really want to talk about how Yuta jumps in and cooks Dagon the exact same way he did originally, and how he might even do him like Toji did but worse. Let's talk about Yuta just outright clashing domains with him. We find out a couple things during Shinjuku. Not only did Yuta gain abilities like moving coordinates and singling out sure hits like Dagon himself did, he also trained with Gojo, boosting his barrier techniques, and also entered his body and was able to learn even more barrier techniques. With that being said, obviously Yuta overtakes Dagon's domain. He has the same ability to target sure hits at certain people and other techniques on top of that, but I won't talk about those techniques yet, just know Dagon's domain is cooked. When that's all said and done, even though Naobito, Nanami, and Maki are basically worn out, they don't matter because Yuta's sure hit, which would probably be cleaving this mantle, would obliterate Dagon the second he enters. At another W, there was just no way for him to win. In the original story, Toji killed Dagon, left, but suddenly Jogo appeared. We'll get into Toji in a second, because now we have to deal with another disaster cursed spirit, the third in line, and the last pure disaster, Jogo. This is basically Yuta and Megami versus Jogo, since I'll let Jogo burn Nanami, Naobito, and Maki before Yuta fights him. Earlier, I made a reference to a statement that we'll need later on in the video, and now is the time. As Naobito, unstacked by the way, was blitzing and cooking Dagon, he immediately started comparing his speed to that of Jogo's and asked himself if he was faster. The comparison doesn't really matter because I already laid out the speed chain between Yuta and Naobito, so sadly this guy ends up on the chain as well. Since Jogo doesn't have the speed to do anything, the first thing he'd do is use a domain expansion because he has no idea about Yuta's abilities. This is of course assuming Yuta doesn't just use his attacks as opportunities to counter and utterly destroy him. Jogo is a pretty weird character. It's stated by Gege himself that if he took 5 black flashes and a swing of playful cloud like Hanami did, he'd die instantly. I was seeing other people's interpretations of this, and honestly, I didn't understand why everyone is seeing it another way. I view it as Jogo going about the fight exactly like Hanami did, but just dying after the playful cloud strike. Because I thought it was pretty clear Gege isn't trying to prove a point by having Jogo endure an even worse battle condition than Hanami did. It's not meant to be completely simultaneously. I really don't know why that's the common consensus. Anyways, like I was saying, Yuta would put the beats on him before that, especially with the help of Rika and Megami, but if Jogo gets his domain off, Yuta can counter it with his own and have zero difficulty in taking it over. In the domain, the exact same thing that Dagon went through happens to him, and if not, the extreme volley of attacks within Yuta's domain will be more than enough to delete him from existence. That's another W on the board. Let's imagine Megumi was taken and thrown out by Toji just like in the original story, but as soon as Megumi had to square up with him, Yuta jumped down from the building as well. This scenario is of course Yuta and Megumi versus Toji. This is the first actually close matchup for Yuta in this entire video, and one I've been avoiding thinking about because of many things like domains and weapons, but luckily Toji in this scenario has only one weapon, and that's his dismembered playful cloud he made while fighting Dagon. Unlike his previous opponents, Yuta can't just slice Toji to bits with his sword just in base, but it's likewise on the opposite end. Toji doesn't have his durability negating sword that slices through any and everything. Clear things that need to be said, Yuta and Toji are comparable in stats. While Toji was completely dominating Megumi, the same won't be happening to Yuta, and it really comes down to who can deal more damage and outlast the other. I mean, let's take a wild guess. Yuta has Rika, another character somewhat comparable to himself, and they're going against a guy with one weapon. The most Toji can do in this situation is overpower Rika, which might be an actual possibility considering how Maki was manhandling Sukuna with one arm. However, Yuta himself is a problem. No matter what Toji throws at him, which isn't much considering the weapon he has, Yuta just heals from it with relative ease. Yuta's sword swings are also super durable. Despite me admitting he's not just slicing Toji to bits, he still has insane AP that Toji has little ability to deal with. The entire Sukuna fight was hilarious to be honest, especially when it comes to trying to skill characters based off the feats they got from it. So for nuance and extra minutes of yap, let's say Yuta's base isn't enough. This is where it gets interesting. Yuta pops his domain expansion, and now the question arises, can Yuta target Toji with his sure hit? Before that question gets answered, I think everyone can agree and understand that Toji will enter Yuta's domain with free will. He did it against Dagon even though he started outside of it with no information of what's happening inside. Off the top of my head, I'm pretty sure Toji's mind was completely gone during the fight and only came back to him after seeing Megumi up close. Now, going back to the question, I find this pretty cool to think about. Yuta is among the only two characters we've ever seen be able to deliberately exclude people from his sure hit and choose who it hits. Of course, the first was Dagon, and very conveniently, thanks to Megumi, the sure hit for the domain was disabled, so we weren't actually able to find out the answer to our question. Yuta has a complex domain, the most complex domain in the series, and the reason this is important is because of his ability to switch his sure hit on a whim. With Cleave and Dismantle or Shrine as a sure hit, yes, Toji will be targeted by the domain sure hit. It's stated that Sukuna's domain literally has a mechanic to target things without curse energy, that being Dismantle, and so it's the direct counter to a heavenly restriction user, especially since it's an open barrier domain. For Toji, who openly enters the domain, he's fair game to the sure hit, especially since Yuta can control it. As for another sure hit that we know of directly for Yuta, that being Jacob's Ladder, I think this has a good argument for it working as well. When Yuta uses Jacob's Ladder against Sukuna in the original story, he sends it down using a hand sign, and it doesn't just hit Sukuna as soon as he releases Hollow Wicker Basket. For reference, this is what happened immediately after an anti-barrier technique is released within a domain. Both Yuji and Gojo experience an immediate hit by the sure hit, while Sukuna stands there for a page before Yuta sends it down himself. Using Rika to maybe immobilize Toji for a little bit while Yuta's about to send the attack down can lead to a direct hit. Discourse aside, I think Yuta would clearly use his most potent sure hit, Shrine, against Toji, and so if that's the case, Toji's being hit with a flurry of dismantles while being jumped by Rika and Yuta. Yuta also has access to his infinite swords, including the use of sky manipulation to sway away certain attacks and hit Toji with durability negation, precognition, and Shikigami to confuse and deal even a little more damage. Toji has no counterplay here, and it's why Yuta is such a powerhouse. He dies, and Megumi's just on the side wondering what's even going on since he can't really keep up with the two. Add another W to the board. After Megumi fought Toji in the original story, he summoned Mahoraga as a last resort to not only kill Haruta, but deal with Sukuna, who was rampaging in Shibuya. This didn't help in the slightest and actually made everything, and I mean everything, worse. Not only did Sukuna kill an overwhelmingly larger amount of people during their fight, but he also solidified his urge to take over Megumi's body. Anyways, 15-figure Sukuna does arrive, but instead of Megumi summoning Mahoraga, before Megumi dies to blood loss, Yuta arrives and heals his injuries with reverse curse technique. And here's the moment everyone has been waiting for. Yuta vs 15 Finger Sukuna. Yuta makes the first move, going for a slash that Sukuna deflects, asking who the hell he is. Riga appears and tries to smash Sukuna into the ground, but he withstands it like he did in the manga. Escaping from her hold, Sukuna sends a couple slashes at Yuta to test what he's going against. Just like Ryu, Sukuna's surprised to see that he can tank his slashes well enough to the point where he feels the need to not underestimate him. Yuta, taking note of how potent the slashes were, doesn't waste a single second and pops his domain expansion. Sukuna doesn't have another 2 arms to give up for Hollow Wicker Basket, and because of his time limit in Yuji's body, he makes sure there's no mistakes made in his game, so he pops his domain expansion back. I am personally under the impression that Yuta is able to use the basketball-sized domain just like Gojo, mainly because he was able to replicate it using Gojo's body, and I don't think it's really a matter of the 6 size giving him a boost. The 6 size don't just give you an insane proficiency in everything. Until Gojo literally died against Toji, he only had blue, and the most he could do with that was put it to max output. 4 of his students had a domain expansion before him, 2 of them learning reverse cursing knee before him. Yuta didn't credit him using basketball domain to the 6 size. He attributed it to Gojo using it and having the memory in order to replicate it. Using that line of reasoning, I think Yuta can use the miniature domain, and so that's his game plan going against the open barrier of Sukuna's. But this doesn't really matter because Sukuna's refinement is likely just greater than Yuta's. This conversation is always iffy because we cannot objectively come to a conclusion regarding whose domain would win over the other in a clash. We've gotten very vague descriptions and examples like Gojo casually taking over Jogo's likely due to their gap in strength, or Hakari's domain getting a statement about having an advantage in clashes because of the speed and non-lethality of his sure hit. The thing about Yuta vs Sukuna in particular is something I never really noticed until recently, and it's regarding his fight in Gojo's body. In chapter 262, Yuta knows that because of Sukuna's fatigue, he should be able to stall Sukuna's domain for the 3 minutes Gojo originally did. Finger scaling is a weird and pretty odd topic in itself, but I think everyone can agree that this Sukuna is weaker than the 15 finger Sukuna we see in Shibuya. His curse energy is less than half of his full power, his injuries are ridiculous, and his control over Megumi's body is so weak, Yuji had a dialogue with him mid-battle. Being consistent, a stronger Sukuna would not only destroy the outside of Yuta's barrier faster than 3 minutes, but the sure hit clash within the domain shouldn't even be close. If there's anything we do know, Yuta's refinement isn't on the level of Gojo's, so it would be impossible for Yuta and Sukuna to equally clash domains. With that being said, to continue the conversation, how would the fight be inside the domain assuming Yuta has the same conditions as Gojo, being capable of clashing with Sukuna? Yuta is able to use all of his swords, so that includes the most important abilities, Sky Manipulation and Cursed Speech. Jacob's Ladder is kind of iffy in how it will work inside of one of Yuta's swords, but the 2 mentioned prior are definitely able to work against Sukuna. Sukuna, because he has a definite way to win, that being destroying the outside, would have way more room to chillax and have fun with Yuta, so these attacks would all be used against him because he lets it happen. At the end of the day, however, Yuta doesn't have Yuji who can disrupt Sukuna's harmony and lower his output, so eventually, even before the 3 minutes are up, Sukuna would bliss and cleave Yuta. Yuta is, whether you like it or not, relative to Ryu, who got the exact same treatment. The only difference would be that Yuta can heal from injuries prior, but after taking cleaves he can't recover from, it's done for him. Put the L on the board. The final fight of Shibuya, and one of the best in the series, was Yuji, Nobara, and Todo all against Mahito. I was thinking of dropping Yuta into the battle when Todo comes in, but Mahito tells us directly that he's only at 40%. To make things fair, Yuta fights alongside Yuji from the beginning. Throughout this whole video, I've established a hierarchy when it came to speed, and sadly Mahito himself plays into it, ranking below Jogo, who's portrayed and just has better showings in speed compared to him. If you don't believe me, the chain goes like this. Jogo is slower than Naobito unstacked, who's faster than Naoya but not to a considerable amount as they have the same technique. Naoya went on to Perception Bliss Yuji, who went relative to a transformed 220% Mahito while completely unstacked. In fact, it was his first burst of speed. Mahito is slower than he is transformed, and so he falls short within the rankings. Yuta is well above him in speed, and so he'd act as a stunner for Yuji's effective strikes. Like always though, there's discussion around Yuta, and this time is about his potential ability to damage Mahito subconsciously. As we all know, Yuta cursed Rika, and that's how the vengeful cursed spirit we know today was born. But there was more to it. Kenjaku described the phenomena as Yuta detaining Rika's soul. This was of course with the use of curse energy, hence why she is incarnated, and so it begs the question, would this qualify under the requirements to damage Mahito? Not really. I feel like it's just emphasized as an ability certain characters have access to, and it's never really ambiguous. Gege will go out of his way to mention that you have perception of the soul, or show that you do. I don't think it's a fair thing to do, giving Yuta this insane ability just because of some odd wording, so we'll continue under the assumption that Yuta can't damage Mahito conventionally. It doesn't matter, to be honest, because he's with Yuji, and with his superior speed, giving Yuji openings to attack isn't a problem. That boy Mahito got jumped by a way weaker Yuji and almost died. Imagine a Shibuya Yuji who's jumping Mahito and then... Nobara was fighting Mahito in another place, so on top of Yuta stunning Mahito before attacks, he's taken another attack directly to his soul. At this point, Mahito will be forced to use his domain expansion, but for 0.2 seconds to avoid the risk of Sukuna interrupting. Sadly for Mahito, we have a fear of Yuta reacting to something in 0.1 seconds, and also the fact that Yuji was able to chase Mahito immediately after reacting to the domain. Yuta can pop his domain immediately as a rebuttal and overtake Mahito's. In Burnout, Mahito just gets absolutely slaughtered even before the other Mahito arrives to the fight, and even Todo. Don't even get me started on the disgustingness that would take place if Todo were to arrive and assist Yuta and Yuji in fighting Mahito. Just put the W on the board. I usually never talk about what would happen if the new character were to enter the fight with Kenjaku, since the point is that Kenjaku can just escape with Gojo. And to be honest, this fight should have a whole video for itself, but maybe that comes later down the line. So with that being said, Yuta ends the video with a record of 6-1. He dominated Choso, Jogo, Dagon, Mahito, and Hanami, with each fight just being a matter of higher scaling. Toji was a more interesting fight, but considering Yuta's versatility against Toji's singular weapon, Yuta took the W on that one. Sukuna was his only loss today, but this would have happened to anyone not named Gojo Satoru, so it's not even a loss when you really think about it. Anyways, what did you guys think of this video? Did I miss something? I probably did. I've been scripting this on and off for the past like 2 weeks. Make sure to let me know down in the comments though. If you enjoyed the video, go ahead and like and subscribe. And I'll catch y'all in the next one.